The ancient myth. For centuries, the story of the lost human empire had been passed down from generation to generation. It was told as a myth, a story of a powerful fleet of ships that once belonged to humanity. The myth spoke of a time when humans were not just a small part of the galaxy, but rulers of the stars. Their fleet was said to be so mighty that no enemy could defeat them. The myth described these ships as vast, with advanced technology beyond anything humanity had ever known. They were said to be able to travel across galaxies, exploring worlds, and conquering civilizations. But then, one day, the fleet mysteriously disappeared, leaving behind only whispers of its existence. The story was always told in a way that made it seem impossible. It was a fairy tale, something to entertain children before they went to bed. Adults would laugh it off, saying it was just an ancient fantasy. But for some, the idea that humanity once had such power never faded. Among those who refused to let the myth die was a young historian named Leo. Leo had spent his entire life studying the stars, the galaxies, and the ancient texts that held secrets of the past. He was obsessed with the story of the lost fleet. Unlike others, he never thought of it as a fairy tale. He believed there was truth in the myth, hidden deep within the old records. One day, while Leo was working in his small study filled with ancient books and star maps, he stumbled upon something unusual. It was a fragment of an old star chart, a piece that didn't match anything in the known galaxy. The markings on the chart were almost identical to those described in the ancient myth, the very symbols of the lost fleet. His heart raced as he compared the chart to others he had seen before. The similarities were undeniable. This wasn't a coincidence. The myth, the story that so many believed to be false, was real. The lost fleet might actually exist, but there was no way to be certain. The piece of the chart was too small, too fragmented to make any clear conclusions. Leo knew he had to dig deeper. He couldn't just ignore this discovery. It was his chance to prove that the myth was not just a story but a truth buried in time. Over the next few weeks, Leo became consumed with his work. He traveled across the world, visiting ancient archives and hidden libraries that held records from long ago. He scoured old documents and maps, trying to find more evidence to support his theory. The more he looked, the more he found. Small hints, odd markings, and strange references that all pointed to the same thing. Humanity's legendary fleet was not a myth after all. It was real. The deeper Leo dug, the more questions arose. Where had the fleet gone? Why had it disappeared? And most importantly, why had humanity forgotten about it? These questions gnawed at him, but he couldn't stop. The pieces were falling into place, and he was determined to uncover the truth, no matter where it led. Then, one evening, Leo made a discovery that would change everything. While examining a very old star map, he noticed something he had missed before. There, in the farthest reaches of the galaxy, was a star system that didn't exist on any modern map. It was a place mentioned in the ancient texts, a place where the lost fleet was said to have vanished. His hand shook as he realized what this meant. The myth, the story he had believed in for so long, was not just a tale. It was a clue to the location of humanity's lost fleet. Leo couldn't contain his excitement. He immediately contacted a group of scientists and researchers to share his discovery. They were skeptical at first, but after examining the evidence, they began to believe as well. The truth was staring them in the face. Humanity's fleet, thought to be lost forever, had only been waiting to be found. It was out there, somewhere in the far reaches of the galaxy, waiting for someone to uncover the truth. As the news spread, people around the world began to talk. The myth that had been laughed at for centuries was now a reality. Humanity's legendary fleet was real, and it was waiting to be discovered. But there was a question on everyone's mind. Who would find it? And what would happen when they did? The story of humanity's lost fleet had just begun, and with it, the future of humanity was about to change forever. The discovery. Leo sat in his small office late at night, his mind racing. The star map he had discovered weeks ago was spread out before him, and he couldn't stop staring at it. The distant star system, the one that had never appeared on any modern map, was now the center of his thoughts. It was more than just a mystery. It was the key to everything. After days of research, Leo finally gathered enough information. He contacted a group of scientists, astrophysicists, and researchers who specialized in deep space exploration. They were skeptical, of course. No one had believed in the myth of the lost fleet, and now Leo was suggesting that the fleet could be real, and it might be waiting at the edge of the known galaxy. Still, Leo couldn't do this alone. He needed help, and for the first time, there was a group of people willing to listen. The team of researchers was small at first, just a handful of people who were brave enough to consider the impossible. They began to work together, examining the star maps, scanning for signals, and searching for any clues that would confirm Leo's discovery. Days turned into weeks. They worked day and night, running simulations, analyzing old space records, and trying to make sense of the information they had gathered. But nothing concrete appeared. Every lead seemed to disappear as quickly as it appeared. Then, on a cold morning, something happened. A strange signal appeared on the research team's radar, a signal unlike anything they had ever seen. It was faint at first, a quiet hum in the deep silence of space, but it was unmistakable. The signal came from the exact location Leo had found on the ancient star map. Could it be? Leo whispered to himself, eyes wide with disbelief. The researchers quickly ran more tests, checking and rechecking the signal. It was real, they confirmed. It was coming from the star system that had been long thought to be just a myth. And it wasn't just any signal. This one carried a pattern, like a message hidden within the noise. The team worked around the clock to decode it. Leo felt both excitement and fear as he watched the messages slowly unravel. It took hours, but finally, a clear message emerged, written in a language that no one could understand. It wasn't anything like the languages used by any known species in the galaxy. But that wasn't the most shocking part. The message contained a single word, one that Leo and his team couldn't believe. Humanity. This was it. This was the first real proof that the myth was true. The signal was from humanity's lost fleet, and it was calling out to them. Leo felt his heart race. The message was coming from the edge of the galaxy, a place where no one had dared to explore. There was no turning back now. The fleet had found them. The myth had come alive. The researchers now had a decision to make. Should they send a response? Should they reach out to whatever or whoever was sending the message? Or should they stay silent and keep the discovery a secret, unsure of what might happen if they made contact? After a tense discussion, they made a bold decision. They would send a response. The message was clear. Humanity had found its fleet, and the lost empire was waiting for them. The team sent a reply, carefully crafting their message. Leo wrote the final words, "We are ready to meet you." It was a simple message, but it carried the weight of human history and hope. As the message was sent into the unknown, Leo and the researchers waited. They had no idea what would happen next. Would the fleet respond? Would they reveal themselves to humanity? Or was this just the beginning of something far more dangerous than anyone had imagined? For the first time in centuries, humanity's legendary myth was no longer just a story. It was real. And now, the world had to face the truth. The discovery was just the beginning. The adventure into the unknown was about to begin. The arrival. The days that followed were filled with uncertainty. Leo and the research team could barely sleep, their minds constantly racing. The message they had sent into the galaxy had been met with silence, and every passing hour made them wonder if they had made a mistake. Was the fleet real? Was the signal just a coincidence? Then, exactly 3 days after their reply, something happened. It began with a low rumble, a deep vibration that shook the ground beneath their feet. Leo, who had been working late in his office, felt the tremor. It was brief, but enough to make him stop and look around, confused. "Did anyone else feel that?" he asked, standing up. He rushed to the window, his heart pounding. Across the world, people felt it. Governments, military bases, and research stations all reported the same strange tremor, but no one knew what it meant until the skies themselves seemed to change. It started in the sky over Leo's city. A small patch of the sky, bright and clear just moments before, began to darken. A massive shadow spread across the horizon, blotting out the stars. It wasn't a storm, and it wasn't a cloud. It was something much larger. The world's telescopes and satellites immediately focused on the strange object. What they saw left them speechless. A fleet of enormous ships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built, appeared in the sky. They were like nothing the world had ever seen. Sleek, powerful, and beautiful, with smooth metallic surfaces that gleamed in the light of distant stars. The ships were unlike anything the people of Earth had ever encountered. There were dozens of them, each one enormous and hovering high above the planet. They seemed to be made of a material that reflected the light in strange ways, almost as if they were shimmering, flickering like shadows in the night. The world held its breath. For hours, the fleet remained silent, simply hovering in the atmosphere, watching. The ships didn't move or make any sound, but their presence was undeniable. It was as if they were waiting for something. And every second, more people around the world grew increasingly fearful. In a large military base in the United States, top officials rushed into command centers, trying to make sense of the event. Messages were sent to every government, military base, and space station, but no one had any answers. The fleet was simply there, floating silently in the air. Leo, along with his team, watched the scene unfold from their research center. He could barely believe his eyes. The fleet was real. It was no longer a myth or a story. It was here. Then, without warning, the fleet began to move. Slowly at first, the ships began to drift toward the ground. Their movements were slow and controlled, like they had been here before. They hovered above the Earth, high enough that no one could reach them, but low enough that everyone could see them clearly. The sheer size of the ships made the ground below feel small and insignificant. Leo's heart raced as he watched the fleet descend. He had never imagined it would happen like this. The fleet had come, just as the ancient myth had said. But what did it mean? Why had they arrived now? As the ships moved closer to Earth, the air seemed to change. There was a strange, almost electric feeling in the atmosphere, as if the very fabric of space was shifting. The sky began to glow with an eerie light, and the ships, now much closer to the ground, seemed to pulse with energy. It was clear that this was no ordinary event. This was something humanity had never experienced before. The fleet was here, and they weren't leaving. The myth had come to life, and now humanity had to face it. Leo's thoughts raced. The fleet had arrived. But who were they? And what did they want? The first sign of communication came not in words, but in a signal. A strange, harmonic sound filled the air, resonating from the ships themselves. It was like a song, beautiful and haunting, reaching into the hearts of everyone who heard it. It was a sound unlike anything humanity had ever known, familiar yet foreign. Then, as if answering the world's question, a single ship descended lower than the rest. It stopped just above the surface, and a soft beam of light shone down, illuminating the ground below. The world waited in silence, holding its breath. The fleet had arrived, and soon humanity would learn why. The first contact. The world watched in awe as the massive fleet hovered above Earth. For hours, the ships remained silent, and the whole planet seemed to hold its breath. People gathered in the streets, on rooftops, and in parks, staring up at the sky. The atmosphere was filled with a strange mix of fear and wonder. No one knew what would happen next. Leo, along with the small team of researchers, anxiously watched from their control room. They had been working tirelessly for days, studying every signal, every clue, but nothing could have prepared them for this. The fleet was here, and humanity was face to face with its long-lost past. Suddenly, a voice crackled through every communication device on Earth. It wasn't in any language anyone knew, but it was clear and strong. The voice echoed across cities, towns, and rural villages. It was both terrifying and beautiful. Leo's heart raced. The signal was coming from the fleet. He grabbed the nearest communicator and quickly contacted his team. "We need to decode this. It's a message. The first contact is happening right now." The team worked feverishly, decoding the strange language. The sound of the voice was otherworldly, like a song, a blend of harmonic tones that seemed to resonate deep in the soul. But even with the strange words, Leo had a feeling that it wasn't hostile. There was something peaceful about it, something familiar, as though the speakers were reaching out, not with threats, but with hope. Minutes passed, and then a breakthrough. "We've got it," one of the researchers shouted. The language, they discovered, wasn't alien at all. It was humanity's own, but a form of it lost to time. They had been right. This fleet was human. The voices came from the descendants of humanity's lost empire. And now, they were here. The message that finally emerged was simple, yet full of weight. "We are humanity. We return to you. Do not fear. Come forth." The message echoed through the world. Governments, leaders, and everyday citizens all heard it at the same time. It was a call to action. The fleet wasn't here to conquer. They weren't here to destroy. They were offering something much more powerful, a reunion. Leo could barely believe what he was hearing. This was beyond anything he could have imagined. Humanity had thought itself alone in the galaxy, but now it was clear that the lost fleet had returned. The myth had been true. For a moment, there was silence. People didn't know how to react. Some were afraid. Some were excited. Others felt confused. What did this mean for Earth? What did this mean for humanity's future? Then the fleet's leader, the one who had spoken the message, descended further from the sky. One ship, larger than the others, moved closer to Earth. Its metallic surface shimmered in the sunlight, reflecting the world below. The ship hovered just above the ground, and a soft light bathed the area where it stopped. Leo's heart beat faster. The first contact had begun. The fleet was waiting for them. But the question remained, what now? Who would be the one to make the first move? Who would step forward and meet the fleet? A few brave souls were the first to volunteer. Scientists, diplomats, and leaders from different countries began to gather in the area where the ship had landed. It was clear they would need to prepare, but no one could predict what would happen next. They knew this meeting would shape humanity's future. Leo stood with his team, feeling both fear and excitement. He had spent his entire life studying humanity's past, uncovering forgotten truths. And now, the past was meeting the present in a way he could never have imagined. The first contact was happening, and the world was about to change forever. As Leo watched, the ship began to open. Slowly, its massive doors slid open, revealing a glowing platform. A figure emerged, standing tall and regal. It was human, just like the legends had described, but different, older, wiser, and with an aura of power. The figure looked down at the crowd below, and then their eyes locked onto Leo. There was recognition in the stranger's gaze, as if they had known him for a long time. "Welcome," the figure said, their voice deep and full of warmth. "We have waited for you." And with that, the first contact was made. The myth was no longer just a story, it was reality. Humanity had met its past, and the future had begun. The revelation. The crowd stood in awe, the air thick with anticipation. The figure who had emerged from the massive ship was unlike any human Leo had ever seen. They were tall, with a commanding presence, their clothes glowing softly, as if woven with light itself. There was an ancient yet familiar quality to them, something that made Leo feel both amazed and overwhelmed. The figure raised a hand, and the crowd fell silent. It was as if the very air had changed, filled with a quiet power. Leo took a deep breath and stepped forward, unable to resist. This was a moment in history, a moment that would define the future of humanity. He had to know more. "Who are you?" Leo called out, his voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside him. The figure smiled, a knowing smile, and spoke in a voice that echoed in Leo's mind. "I am one of the descendants of the fleet you have long forgotten. We were once part of humanity, just like you. But time has separated us. Now, we have returned." Leo's heart raced. The ancient myth was true, but this was beyond what he had imagined. These people were human, just like them, but they had lived for centuries beyond Earth. Their civilization had evolved in ways humanity had never dreamed of. You are from the Lost Fleet?" Leo asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," the figure replied. "We are the survivors of the Great Exodus. We left Earth long ago, seeking new worlds and greater understanding. Over time, we became something more, something different. But we never forgot our origins. We always knew that one day we would return." Leo's mind struggled to comprehend what was being said. Humanity had left Earth, but where had they gone? What had they become? And why had they come back now? "We have learned much," the figure continued, their voice calm and steady. "Over the centuries, we have discovered new technologies, new ways to understand the universe. We have traveled to distant stars, and we have unlocked the secrets of life and death. But now we return not just to share knowledge, but to help humanity. We return to guide you." Leo felt a chill run down his spine. They weren't here to conquer. They weren't here to control. They were offering something far greater, a chance for humanity to join them, to become part of something much bigger than Earth. The figure stepped closer, and the air seemed to hum with energy. "We have seen the struggles of your world, Leo. We know your pain, your fear, and your hope. We have waited for you to grow, to reach out, to ask for help. And now, that moment has come." Leo could hardly speak, his thoughts swirling. Why us? Why now? The figure looked at him with a deep, knowing gaze. "Humanity is at a crossroads. You face challenges that could destroy your world, yet you also have the potential to rise above them. We come not to give you all the answers, but to help you find your way. The choice is yours, Leo. The choice is humanity's." The crowd stood in silence, processing the words. It was overwhelming. The fleet wasn't just a myth. It was a living, breathing reality that held the key to humanity's future. And now, that future was in their hands. "The time has come to decide," the figure said softly. "Do you wish to join us? To learn from us, to grow beyond what you thought was possible? Or will you remain as you are, bound by the limitations of your world?" Leo looked around at the faces of the people gathered around him. Some were filled with hope, others with fear, but all were searching for answers. The fleet had returned to offer guidance, but the choice was theirs to make. He turned back to the figure. "What happens if we join you? What will we become?" The figure smiled. "You will become something greater. You will learn to harness the power of the stars, to unlock the mysteries of the universe. But it will not be easy. The path will be difficult, and you will face challenges along the way. But if you are willing to trust us, to work together, we can build a future where humanity is no longer just a small part of the galaxy. You will be part of a greater whole." The air around them seemed to vibrate with energy. The moment of decision had arrived. Leo knew this was the beginning of something far beyond anything he had ever imagined. The myth had come alive, and now humanity stood at the threshold of a new era. But the question remained, would they take the first step? The choice. The silence that followed the figure's words was thick and heavy. The weight of the decision that lay ahead was almost too much to bear. The world had been presented with an unimaginable opportunity to join the fleet, to reach beyond the stars, and become part of something far greater than anything humanity had ever known. But there was a problem. Not everyone was ready to take that leap. Leo looked out across the crowd, seeing the mixture of faces before him. Some filled with excitement, others with fear, and a few with doubt. He understood their feelings. The idea of joining an advanced, otherworldly civilization, one that had been separated from Earth for centuries, was a lot to ask. I need time, Leo said, his voice filled with uncertainty. We need to talk, to decide. The figure nodded slowly, as if understanding the weight of the moment. You have time, Leo, but do not take too long. The path before you is one of great potential, but it will not wait forever. Leo turned away, looking to the others. There was no easy answer. There were some who wanted to embrace the offer, to join the fleet, and see what knowledge and power they could gain. They dreamed of a future beyond Earth, of a new age for humanity. But others were hesitant. They feared what such a change might bring. Some worried that by accepting the fleet's offer, they would lose everything they knew about their home, their culture, their identity. We can't just jump into this without thinking it through, said one of the scientists standing beside Leo. What would we even be giving up? Everything we've built here, would we lose that? Are we ready to leave Earth behind? The questions echoed in Leo's mind. The fleet offered the chance for greatness, for a future beyond imagination. But what if it came at too high a cost? Some in the crowd began to argue, their voices growing louder. We can't stay stuck on Earth forever. Look at our planet. It's dying. We need to do something now. No, another voice shouted. We don't even know who these people really are. They've been gone for so long. What if they come with a hidden agenda? Leo's heart ached as he heard the arguments. He knew both sides had valid points. There was so much to gain from joining the fleet. The technology, the knowledge, the power to save Earth and beyond. But there was also so much to lose. Humanity's sense of identity, freedom, and its connection to the planet that had been their home for so long. Leo knew what had to be done. He turned back to the figure from the fleet, who had been waiting patiently for the debate to unfold. We need to think this through, Leo said firmly. We can't make this decision in a day. It's not just about us here. It's about every person on Earth, every man, woman, and child. They all deserve a chance to understand what's at stake. The figure nodded again, the calmness of their gaze unwavering. I understand, but time is a luxury that will not last forever. You must decide soon. Leo turned back to the crowd, feeling the weight of the world pressing down on his shoulders. We'll need to hold meetings, discussions, listen to everyone's concerns. We can't rush this decision. The world seemed to hold its breath. There were people in favor of joining the fleet, eager to leave Earth behind for a new, exciting future. And there were others who were afraid of what they might lose in the process. But in the end, Leo knew that the choice had to be made. Humanity could no longer stay where they were. The fleet had arrived, and the opportunity for change had come. What if we can find a way to make it work? Leo said, his voice growing stronger. What if we can learn from the fleet and still keep what makes us human? Maybe we can learn from them, grow together, and still protect what we love about Earth. But we need to work together, all of us. The figure from the fleet stepped forward once again. It is a difficult decision, but one that you must make. There is no turning back once the path is chosen. But you are not alone. Whatever decision you make, we will stand by you. The future of humanity is in your hands. Leo nodded, feeling the burden of the choice. The future of Earth, the future of humanity, was no longer in the hands of a few scientists or leaders. It was in the hands of every single person on the planet. And with that, the weight of their future had become clear. As Leo stood at the edge of the crowd, his mind raced with possibilities. The fleet was waiting. Humanity had the chance to change everything, to reach beyond their wildest dreams. But at what cost? The choice was clear, but it was one that would take time, careful thought, and the collective will of humanity. The future was waiting, but it was up to them to decide if they were ready for it. A new beginning. The days following the intense debate were filled with uncertainty, but also with hope. The world had been given an incredible opportunity, an invitation to join the fleet and take humanity's place among the stars. Yet the decision was not easy. It wasn't just about reaching for something new. It was about holding on to what made them who they were, the world they had built, and the values they held dear. Leo spent sleepless nights talking with leaders, scientists, and ordinary people. He understood their fears. They were afraid of change, of losing everything they had worked for. But he also saw something else. The spark of hope, the desire for a better future. A future where Earth could heal, where humanity could grow, and where they could learn from a past they had forgotten. Then came the day when the world would make its decision. The figure from the fleet had been patient, giving humanity the time they needed to reflect. Now, they were ready. In a global broadcast, leaders from every country stood before their people, their faces solemn. Leo stood with them, his heart heavy with the weight of the moment. The fleet was still above Earth, waiting, watching. The world had decided. The time had come to step into the unknown. The leader of the United Nations spoke first. For centuries, humanity has searched the stars, looking for answers, looking for others like us. We have always believed we were alone. But today, we know we are not. The fleet that has come to us is not an enemy, but a part of our forgotten history. They are our ancestors, and they have returned to offer us something more than we could have ever imagined. The leader paused, and Leo could feel the tension in the air. People all over the world were watching, waiting for the decision that would change everything. We, the nations of Earth, the leader continued, have chosen to accept the offer. We will join the fleet. We will learn from them, and we will work together to build a new future. But we will never forget who we are. We will always hold on to our roots, our home, and we will carry the lessons of our past with us as we move forward. The crowd erupted into applause. It wasn't unanimous. There were still some who held reservations, who feared what might come of such a monumental change. But the overwhelming majority had made their decision. Humanity was ready to take the first step into a future among the stars. The figure from the fleet, standing high above in the great ship, raised their hand. A wave of energy rippled through the air, and the fleet began to move. Slowly, the ships descended, coming closer to the Earth's surface. They were no longer distant, mysterious visitors. They were here to stay. And as they came closer, the world watched in wonder. Leo felt a sense of awe wash over him. He had dreamed of this moment his entire life, the moment when humanity would step into a greater world. And now, it was happening. The figure's voice, soft but clear, spoke again. Welcome, humanity. Welcome to the stars. With those words, the gates of the fleet opened, and the first few steps were taken. The people of Earth moved forward, reaching out to meet their ancestors. The unknown was no longer something to fear. It was something to embrace. As the sun set on Earth that evening, the world seemed to change. The air felt different, charged with possibility. The night sky, once a vast, empty void, now seemed full of promise. The myth had come true. The fleet had arrived. And humanity's journey, one that had begun so long ago with a simple myth, was just starting. Leo looked up at the sky, his heart filled with hope. The future of humanity had just begun. And this time, they would not be alone.